Namaste, welcome to the class. I feel that in this paper 8, we are looking at different ideas not included so far in the education of dance. But with the changing of times, the changing of perspective, and a need, a desire to familiarize students to critical thinking, we have introduced such newer areas which were never talked about earlier in the field of dance. And so the topic today, that is the erotica in dance, the title may surprise you, but when you will go through the content of the module, you will realize that how important it is for you to understand the background and your creativity process that will come in future, and especially this area of divine, not divine, sensuous, religious, and so on and so forth. So please pay attention to this special module and think about it. As you understand, the religion and the way it has evolved over the centuries in India has extremely significant socio-economic, politic, and even philosophical overtures. It has never been limited to a narrow ecclesiastical interpretation as it has happened in the other major religions in the rest of the world. When we talk of religion in India, we are not only referring to Hinduism, but to other religions as well. The religion is not the correct synonym for dharma in the Hindu context. Dharma is much wider than religion and embraces many other qualities such as personal character and integrity, ethical and moral laws, mental aptitude and temperament, and many other elements. Dharma is not limited to the mere observation of certain rites and rituals, canons and customs and beliefs. Man's belief in God or Godhead primarily emerges from his understanding of a strong force or overpowering energy in nature on which he has no apparent control. This superior energy is abstract, and for human beings to understand it, it was converted into concrete, visually formidable symbols and images. Thus were born the gods and goddesses. Hence the development of painting and sculptures to create these images and deities. Special spaces in the house to house them, hence temples, places of worship, and so the architecture. Song and dance to propitiate them, and rituals and religious rites to keep them happy and protect their worship. It is believed that the Hindu religion is much more accepting of the depiction of the eroticism than any other major religions of the world. Hindu gods and goddesses, celestial nymphs or apsaras, yakshas and yakshinis are often depicted as well endowed, sometimes in semi-naked states, and are respected and worshipped. Dance usually came as performance seen as a ritual in ceremonial worship and sacrifices. Later, with the establishment of temples, performance came to be part of daily ritual to celebrate the glory of the deity and seeking blessings. Narratives related to the divine love between Shiva and Parvati, or Radha Krishna and Radha and Gopis, the attempts of apsaras to seduce sages, and so on, are accepted easily by the Hindus without being associated with a sense of vulgarity or indecent. Shiva is Natraj and Krishna is Natwar, both epitomes of the art of performance. The passion is often elevated to the level of spiritual ecstasy, and there is a very thin line that separates the erotic from the ecclesiastical. Indian dance traditions have depended heavily on content and narrative that draws from the Hindu epics, most of which are religious or quasi-religious. Therefore, the spiritual and the erotic often get subtly entwined in Indian classical dance forms. The four Vedas are the oldest known scriptures of the Aryans, who subjugated large parts of the Indian subcontinent. The Vedic hymns, particularly the Rig Veda, sing the praises of gods and goddesses, generally personified from natural phenomenon, their sexual relations emphasizing their dancing qualities. The Veda also mention ritual dances at the time of horse sacrifices, that is Ashwamedha, and other important rituals, as well as musical instruments. While composing the Vedas, the Aryans deemed it absolutely imperative to include the arts of music and dance embedded with erotic content, but designed for the spiritual upliftment of mankind. They did it rather elegantly, combining it with the strictures of religious rites and social duties for men and women to ensure a life of peace and harmony. Eroticism was therefore seen as essential part of life and not something that was vulgar or objectionable. Dance and music were the first twin arts that Aryans gave birth to. The other arts followed them in gradual sequence. The Vedas, the Upanishads and the Puranas, and later the epics, that is Ramayana and Mahabharata, all of which are treated as sacred scriptures by the Hindus, offer abundant information regarding all that is most interesting in the contemplation of antique dance art. The art of dance developed so well that its movements, techniques, content and so on were codified by experts such as Bharata Muni of Natya Shastra and Nandikeshwara, the Abhinay Darpanam. But amongst the earlier grammarians of the art of dance are Silalin and Krishwas. The Natya Shastra divides Indian dance into two parts, Tandava, that is virile and masculine and manly, and Lasya, that is tender, feminine and womanly. It is believed that Bharata Muni felt the need for Lasya style because he felt that the graceful Kaishiki could not be properly danced by men. Kaishiki was one of the four modes of dance styles prevalent then, the other three being Bharati, that is which highlighted rhetoric flourish, mainly associated with dramatic situation, Satvati, which expressed emotion, and Arabhati indicated tumultuous situations. It is also believed that the structure of dance movement took the five natural phenomena into consideration. The Pancha Mahabhuta, that is earth, Panchabhukshiti, water, Apa, wind, Maruta, fire, Teja, and space, Vyoma. The movements would mimic both the wild and mild movements of these natural elements that translate into male and female movements respectively. The Natya Shastra enumerates a variety of erotic situations, physical and natural graces of a woman, as well as gestures, amorous, passionate, sportive, and so on, used to indicate eroticism. Bharata Muni also describes the different kinds of heroines, Naikas, affected by love and passion, the various types of women as well as courtesans. He goes on to give graphic descriptions of eroticism in body movements, postures and gestures in dance. Shiva is the god of dance and he dances out the creation of this world, but he cannot do so without the help of his consort. His dances with Parvati's two manifestations are the Gauri Tandava and Uma Tandava. These dances belong to Shiva's tamasic aspect, that is Bhairava or Veerabhadra, and are generally danced in the crematorium. There is also the Urdhva Tandava, where Shiva dances, lifting one of his legs above the crown of his head. Kali is another manifestation of Parvati. She is naked, dark, and threatening, and her dance is orgiastic, which can be interpreted in a philosophical and mystical sense. In the Kali cult, Kali is regarded as a superior dancer, and Shiva is only a witness to the dance, who acknowledges Kali's superiority and power and is at her feet. Vishnu and his consort Lakshmi are much more kindlier in the depiction of their dances. The cult of Vishnu celebrates his several incarnations. We are familiar with the young Krishna's dance of childhood, with the milk pots and the milkmaids, also the Rasa Leela, then the youthful dances celebrating love and spirituality with Radha and gopis. The idea of love, devotion, and ecstasy are the emotions related to the Vaishnava cult. While there is supremacy of the intellect in Shaivism, Vaishnavism celebrates emotion, particularly the Sringara Rasa, that essentially focuses on eroticism. But sexual and flirtatious love was disguised to so brilliantly as simple love between friends or spiritual yearning and coming together of the devotee and the Godhead in bhakti. That is North India. There are nursery rhymes that mention the love between Radha and Krishna without a hint of eroticism. This is also one of the reasons why the Radha Krishna love and dance continue to be popular even today. It is believed that the other name of dance is yoga. The greatest yogi is Shiva. The principal object of yoga is to unify the body and the soul, and dancing is one of the media of attaining this object. In a later period of history, the emphasis shifted to a second mode of release through sensual enjoyment, bhoga. Bhoga was popularized through the doctrine of Tantric and its ritual practices in Hindu and Buddhist traditions. The ascetic discipline of yoga was in bhoga practice, taught by a devout but lovely female preceptor and assumed the role of Shakti. Its importance was acknowledged in life, and this is apparent in its representation on the facades of temples that was accepted as a matter of course. Bhoga naturally ushered in the erotic Indian dance. The word mudra or hand gesture has originated from tantric rituals. In the language of dancing, hand gestures are termed hasta abhinaya, and a number of mudras used in tantric rituals have been incorporated in this hasta abhinaya. Indian dance has evolved through what can historically be termed as the Hindu period, the Muslim period, the British period, and the Renaissance. The ease with which the idea of the erotic was accepted in the routine life of the Indian people underwent a vast amount of change as different socio-religious influences began to exert their pressures. The Hindu period began with Vedism, sometimes called Brahmanism. This later evolved into Hinduism. A number of accounts of the arts of the Hindu period are found in old treatises, sculptures and painting and architecture such as temples and monuments. Ajanta in the 5th and 6th century, Khajuraho in the 10th and 11th centuries, Konark, Bhuvaneshwar and Puri in the 13th century. The Hindu period ushered in a new epoch in the revelation of eroticism in Indian dance. Eroticism found inspiring sources in Sanskrit epics and literary works of Kalidas's Kumar Sambhav, Shakuntal, Bhavabhuti's Malati Madhav, Barnes' Kadambari, Dandis Dashakumara Charitam, Mayura's Shringara Ashtaka, the love stories of Nala Damayanti, Savitri, Satyavan, and so on. There was a lively interest in the good things of life, the pursuit of pleasure, and many saints even preached salvation through the Pushti Marg or the path of pleasure. Vatsyayan's 64 arts celebrated the life of pleasure too in the Kama Sutra. French critic Max Paul Fauchet writes, "No couples are seen in the shrines of the Christian Occident. The only appear under the baleful signs of malediction and exorcism. The first couple are driven out of Eden. They are symbols of banishment and fear, and proclaim the chastisement of the flesh. But India's civilization, being both spiritual and sensual, eradicates the union of man and woman with bliss." Another Indophile, Dr. Stella Kamrish, writes, "This state, which is like a man and woman in a close embrace, is a symbol of moksha, the final release or union of the two principles, the essence, that is Purusha, and nature, that is Prakriti. This symbol is carved on the door jambs of the Garbhagriha at the Khajuraho temple and its walls, repeatedly in many forms in which limbs are conjoined in close embrace. The name of this conjoined symbol of Purusha and Prakriti as moksha is Mithuna, or the state of being a couple. It has been suggested that the Mithuna or Maithuna are symbols of Shiva and Shakti, symbolizing the oneness of the God and the magic syllable Om. It has also been suggested that the ritualist orgies in the stone at Konarka are only sculptural representations of yogic postures to be found in Tantra. It is also suggested that the couples on the temple facades represent the concept of Yuganada Mahasukha, the attainment of spiritual bliss. Professor Heinrich Zimmer explains, Indian art is not religious in the same sense in which European art of the Middle Ages was religious, nor it is secular in the modern sense of giving no more than aesthetic pleasure of being decorative or ornamental or a matter of only technique and skill. Existence was viewed as an integral phenomenon, and the outlook on life was based upon an all-pervasive dharma with four fundamental values or purusharthas: dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. In this scheme of things, nothing is secular or religious. Hindu art was certainly enriched with a wealth of erotic themes beyond comparison, but this eroticism was mostly associated with divinity. Consider Vishnu's exquisite wooing of Lakshmi at Khajuraho. The delicate restraint of the divine palm and fingers, scarcely supporting the breasts of the goddess, the pliant response of the incurved bodies, the tenderness of the faces and their serene meditation. Nothing here speaks but of supreme harmony. Here is the veritable Mithuna, sensual union imaging mystic union. Lakshmi is not literally the bride of Vishnu or Parvati of Shiva. They are the feminine emanations representing cosmic energy, Shakti in female form. According to some scholars, there is no dual principle in divine couples, only an expression of essential oneness. The all-pervading monism of Hindu thought is once again affirmed. Shiva indeed can be represented in the shape that we should call androgynous. Another stream of religious and artistic experience, belief and conception entered India's cultural history from the 11th century onwards with the impact of Muslim invasions from the northwest. At a social level, relations between Muslims and Hindus were at times violent, particularly during the Muslim conquest. In time, an arrangement evolved whereby the adherents of two great faiths and cultures lived side by side. At the spiritual, artistic and cultural levels, there were various attempts to combine the best in the two cultures. It was in the atmosphere of such a movement that a fusion, that Indo-Persian culture, arose. The Muslim period saw the introduction of the Parda system, that is the seclusion of women, but this aloofness between men and women surprisingly did not influence the sphere of the fine and performing arts. This was the glorious period for the khayal that encouraged a free imagination of music, devoid of rigidity in the musical thought and technical treatment. The period also gave birth to the lyrical eroticism in ghazal and the thumri styles. The religious dance which was practiced in the temples in North India prior to the advent of Muslim rule took a changed shape during this period as a consequence of the fusion of Indo-Persian culture and came to be popular known as Kathak. This form of dance developed in the 15th-16th centuries as a synthesis of Ras Leela and folk dances of the region and later flowered into different milaus, the Hindu courts of Rajasthan, the Jaipur Gharana, and the Muslim courts of Delhi and Uttar Pradesh, the Lucknow Gharana. But during this period, these rulers imagined themselves not only as overlords but as supreme beings, much above ordinary people in status and on the same level as celestial deities. They thought that the dancers who performed in the temples, dancing in the praise of the temple lord, should have no qualms in performing before the Rajas and Nawabs in their courts and darbars. The same fate fell on the temple dancers of South India. While there were a few rulers who were genuine patrons and in fact added value in terms of content and performance to the dance forms, a number of dancers were reduced to performers in courts and rulers and palaces of the wealthy in exchange of money, gifts and favors. In order to elicit patronization of kings and the wealthy, dancers began to engage in intricate variations of footwork in order to present themselves as accomplished dancers. This became especially true with Muslim patrons, since rather than displace the patron with Hindu religious themes and stories in a symbolic dance vocabulary that would be difficult to understand, the performer preferred to specialize in complex mathematical variety of rhythms and movements, with the result that the gesture code declined and wonderfully delicate but movements of the little significance took its place. The emphasis thus shifted from the narrative or natya component to pure movement or nritya component. The Muslim period did not encourage any kind of base emotions or vulgarity of movement in the dance, not erotic content. The older Sanskrit theories of Rasa Shastra and Shringara had classified the female dancers or nayikas in erotics. A number of distinctions were made by these Sanskrit treatises between male and female characters according to their respective attitudes and temperaments. This distinction, known as Nayaka-Nayika Bheda, is discussed in great length in literature and in dramaturgy. During the Muslim period, due to the licentious natures of certain Muslim kings, Nawabs, chiefs, unhealthy elements were introduced in the female roles, prompting the writers to incorporate certain coquettish sentiments and amorous writings in their works. They often cited Kalidas's Kumar Sambhava and Jayadev's Geet Govind without really actually realizing their spiritual, devotional and artistic qualities. The British period, that is the late 18th, 19th century and the first half of 20th century, brought about a completely new way of looking at eroticism in Indian dance. The establishment of British style schools and university with Western higher education provided an intellectual stimulus to Hindus in making them seek a presentation of their traditional faith in a new form of fine arts and social structure. The British brought their understanding of Christianity and its morality, combined with the highly conventional Victorian attitudes of time, to the way they viewed India and its cultural beliefs and constructs. Since the British were accompanied by a number of missionaries with the sole purpose of converting the heathens and saving them from their pagan religious practices, a number of Britishers, excepting the researchers and documentators, also believed in the inherent immorality of the erotic content of Indian art and cultural artifacts. Swami Vivekananda remarked on Phallic worship as follows: "The phallus symbol is certainly a sexual symbol, but gradually that aspect of it is forgotten and it now stands as a symbol of the Creator. Those nations that have this as their symbol never think of it as a phallus. It is just a symbol and there it ends. But a man from another race or creed sees in it nothing but a phallus and begins to condemn it. Yet at the same time, he may be doing something which to the so-called phallic worshippers appear most horrible." With the introduction of the Western influence, certain innocent words, Indian innocent words, were regarded base in their origin, and in such a vocabulary, the words nautch and kotha, amongst others, were included. Nautch originates from nach, meaning dance, which the British could not pronounce correctly. Nautchwali was simply a dancing girl. The word Baiji also received a bad connotation. Baiji was corrupted from Bahenji, meaning sister, generally an older one. Yet the word fell into disrepute, and in the post-independence years, the Baijis were rechristened as Devi. In the same way, Kotha came to be seen as a place for nefarious activity. This was because professional dancers started living on the second story of houses, usually called kothas. Even today, 2 stories houses are called kothis in northern India, in the heart of the cities and towns, as the ground floor rooms were generally shops. When these dancers began to be looked down upon in the British times, their homes in kothas were regarded as situated in the red light areas. It was only due to stalwarts such as Rabindranath Tagore and Uday Shankar that the West began to understand and recognize the real spirit and high aesthetic value of Indian dance, and would slowly discard their earlier perception of it. However, the British also pursued a serious effort to understand the countries that they colonized, and so there were many among them who made sustained efforts to understand and record dance traditions that they came across. As a result, some Western educated Indians also followed the suit. English education brought on an era of analytical minds, and ability to discriminate and discuss had prompted a tendency to seek reality, driving away superstitious beliefs and incongruities. A number of great and eminent pioneers in the field of revivalism on traditional lines sprang up. They had to keep the part of divine eroticism in dancing intact, and they did so by infusing the revived dance forms with the spirit of creativity and linking performance with sacred rituals. Dance has been a cultivated performing art form in India for more than 3000 years. In its various forms, classical, religious, popular, folk, tribal, it has been able to envelop the entire life of a man in a shell of rhythmic harmony. The conscious grammar evolved out of dance practice that was strengthened by repeated performance and norms of tradition. Emotions, gestures, postures, and movements built up the edifice of dance that sometimes, in the absence of or support of written texts, was documented as sculpture, painting, and architectural doctrines and decorations. Simple and complex rhythmic structures evolved as accompanying support, as did songs that explored a wonderful variety of themes from epic scriptures and religious texts. So, I hope you have understood in whole the importancism of sensuality and eroticism in classical dance. Namaste.